Welcome back to Composition and its Allies. My name is Barney. I'm a classical composer, and this is a channel for composers as well as performers that are interested in composition. French harmony exercises is for anyone who wants to go back to basics. I had to move to Paris, France. I stayed there for 5 years to properly learn harmony, and with this training, it made fugue possible for once. It made orchestration much easier, still very difficult, but much easier, and it also just embellished my own compositions because I had a much sharper ear. I could get exactly what I wanted, or pretty close. In today's episode, I want to show you some really quick steps, 6 simple steps to finish your first French harmony exercise. Let's begin. Copy the exercise by hand. So this is the first step. It is super important, and I understand in today's day and age of AI and everything's going to be quick. No, do it on the computer. No, you have to copy the exercise down by hand. The analogy I want to offer today is imagine that you're the king or queen of a very large kingdom and you want to know what's going on. When you copy things by hand, you just notice a lot more details, and it allows you to progress much quicker and also make more informed decisions. All right, now we want to sing the exercise. Re, sol, fa, re, mi, do, re, do, si, si, si. And I recommend singing faster because you'll hear things differently. Re, sol, fa, re, mi, do, re, do, si, si, si. And of course, if you're not very good at singing, it's fine. You just do it by yourself. You know, you can use a piano to assist you get those pitches, but pretty soon you want to just wane yourself off, especially for root position chords. It isn't that difficult, just a little bit of primer from the piano, but then very quickly you just want to do it a cappella so you're not distracted. All right, the reason why we sing is we want to hear these harmonic tendencies, especially we want to hear the 1 and especially the 5 is probably what frappe we say in French. It kind of hits you in the face the most, at least for me. So we have this opening. Re, sol, fa. For me, it has to be a dominant, okay? And I've done many of these exercises. Maybe that's why it's obvious. Also, I know I made the exercise. But the dominant is what kind of hits us the most. Also, we have this re, do, si. Right? Doesn't that feel like a little bit of a conclusion? Now, it can't be because it's not the end of the exercise. But when I got to that re, do, si, when I get to the B, I'm automatically thinking it's going to be a 1 or it's going to be a 6. This is why we sing, because we're going to hear the harmonic potential much quicker. Okay, so now we want to write in a scale degrees. This is really important because we want to see all that harmonic potential. So what is the key we're in? So we see 2 sharps, so automatically I'm thinking D major or B minor. I see it ends with a B, so I know it's B minor. Very important. If that is at all difficult, I doubt it is for most of us on this channel, but if it is, if there's a hesitation for something like just up to 5 or 4, flats or sharps, that is something existential. You have to fix that immediately. If you want to get to fugue and orchestration, there's just no way it's going to happen if just even though the key that there's a hesitation, because the more we advance, the more those holes in our knowledge are going to hold us back. So you will need to seek some outside help, but it won't take very long to get into place. Right in the scale degrees, and notice that we have the soprano going from scale degree 3 to scale degree 6. The reason why that we write these scale degrees is we want to notice patterns. So what you'll start to notice is that for root position chords, at least, if the soprano goes to 6th scale degree, it is almost always the same solution. Another thing we see is the soprano does 3, 2, 1. That is a formula that you'll start to notice there's only one possible solution. Now this brings me to the beauty of the French. So with this French tradition, everything is exposed. We see all the flaws in technique, and that's a good thing because we can fix those problems very quickly. We can actually clean up so you can actually get to the next level and not have these things holding you back. So we write in the scale degrees, we also see 1, 1, 1 in the soprano for an ending. That is a formula for a specific type of cadence. So just to quickly review, we want to save time by copying the exercise down by hand because we notice details much quicker. We do more integrity. We also want to sing the exercise so we hear the harmonic potential. And then we want to confirm what we're hearing or just verify by actually putting the scale degrees. All right, so now we want to get the important stuff. So the first note and the last note, it's going to have to be the tonic, so it's going to be B. Now, something you'll have to decide is which octave this is in. This is not that important. It's not going to really affect the harmony, but you do want a line that's kind of logical. So generally, not always the case, but you want the lower octave if it's available for the ending, and then a more medium or higher octave for the beginning, but you got to stay in those ranges just so you have like, like a nice line with a nice conclusion. Okay, let's continue getting the important stuff. So let's make a chart of chord possibilities. So the reason I do this is just to simplify the brain space so I'm not searching for kind of really basic information. Do not underestimate this. When you're doing a harmony exercise, there's a lot going on. There's doubt, there's fear, there's I gotta make dinner. So as much as you can simplify that brain space, you want to take advantage of that. So notice that I write the Roman numerals. So we have a 1, we have a 4, we have a 5, and a 6. What about the other notes? Remember the rules for repetition chords. So in part A, the absolute rules, the section on distance, I specifically state that for French harmony exercises for repetition chords, for minor keys, we only have the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. Nothing else is possible. Again, the beauty of the French tradition is they really simplify things so you hear just the basics, all right? Now just remember, for the 5, we raise the leading tone and minor, it has to go up a half step. Okay, so we have that chart of chords of possibilities, we have the Roman numerals. Now we figure out what is the root of each chord. So we have B, E, F sharp, G, okay? Next, we fill in the chord. So we have the 1 chord is B, D, F sharp, 4 is E, G, B, and so on and so forth. Don't forget to raise that leading tone for the A sharp for the dominant. Even for someone like myself who has mastered the basics, I still often do this because, again, it's not that I can't figure out the notes in my head, is I want my brain space freed up for actually hearing harmonically and not like, making unnecessary mistakes. So just do it if it helps you. All right, so now we want to get the ending. So the soprano scale degrees are 1, 1. Again, this is why we put the scale degrees in soprano. So automatically it has to be a plagal cadence. In order to have a perfect authentic cadence, we would need to have the leading tone going up to the tonic in a soprano. If you need more information on this, just go to my website. Not right now, I want to stay focused, but later go to my website. I have a professional level short series. It's available for free. It's called Cadences for Repetition Chords. I really break it down. I've gotten a lot of strong feedback that was very, very helpful. It does really well when I put it on different shorts channels. So check it out and it will just put the knowledge in place. But of course you have to do the exercises to actually really benefit from the knowledge. All right, now I want to get the third to last note. So we see a B in the soprano. So we look at chart of chord possibilities. It's going to be the 1 or the 6, but I'll let you decide what's best. And spoiler alert, for these exercises, there's only one possible answer. All right, now we're going to get the first mini phrase. So here's my thinking process. So I see harmony as some kind of story, right? It's a big story. There's smaller chapters and little part sentences, but we have ideas, okay? So the most complete idea in general, okay, the general like this complete package, the smallest idea is going to be 1, 4, 5, and then 1. Many variations on this, but generally you're going to have a place of stability. You go to a place of tension, which is the dominant. You put things in between, kind of build it, and then you need to release, in which you go back to the tonic. Now there's many substitutions. For example, the 6 is used to replace the 1, right? If you want to keep that motion going. So it's a cadence. So what I want to do is I want to go for the obvious. So I hear re, sol, fa, okay, and I talk about how that F sharp really feels like a dominant. It's just screaming at me. So I want to just go for something really clear and obvious. You're not looking to do individual expression. Keep in mind that for French harmony exercises, you're learning a tradition. It's not about your individual expression. You have to become the whole. I mentioned this because I've noticed a lot of, I've been posting on other channels, on Instagram and TikTok. And sometimes, especially with Americans, they want to challenge things and they want to, question things. And it's just really not appropriate. When it's on your own compositions, we want you to explore and do crazy stuff and amazing stuff. But this is kind of like math, okay? It's learning 1 + 1 = 2. It does not equal 3. It does not equal anything else. It only equals 2. But of course, when it comes to music, it always feels subjective. But for French harmony exercises, especially for the beginning, this is really the closest we get to science. So I know a lot of us like to question and we don't want to just accept things for true. But as much as you can, you really just have to accept it and just do the work and you'll progress much quicker. So we have re, sol, fa. Okay, I definitely hear the dominant. Okay, and then I do a 1, 4, 5. Okay. Really clear and really simple. Afterwards, I go to the sixth to form a deceptive cadence. Before we finish the exercise, I just wanted to share the following. I just finished making a 6-week harmony course in the French style for the absolute beginner. This harmony course is for composers and performers of all levels who want to master the basics. There will be 24 mini lessons with homework, answers, and a final exam so you can see your progress. If you want to secure a spot or to test the trial version, head over to school.com/composition. Let's get back to work. Okay, so now we want to test the middle voices. And the reason why we want to test the middle voices, even though we haven't finished getting the bass, is that sometimes we make decisions that seem to work. Okay, ils semblent jolis, we say in French. They seem to be beautiful on their own, just with the outer voices. But when you try to do the middle voices, alto and tenor, it just becomes too complicated or awkward. It's not the best solution. So you need to test as you go. So standard voicing for beginner exercises. All right, this will not be absolute, but just the general preferred for French harmony exercises is going to be the voices, upper three voices, as close together as possible. So you want the alto just below the soprano and then the tenor just below the alto. As you get more advanced, there'll be many other possibilities because it's just too predictable, but it's just a way to keep the exercises nice and clean and light. Definitely for fugue, you need them all under your belt. You need the wider spacing. But for these absolute beginner exercises, I have designed them to pretty much almost always just be the standard position, just so you know like the norms, so that it gets easier to do the extraordinaires in French later on. All right, so now we want to fill in the chords, and we just want something super, super simple. You're not seeking creative expression. You just want something really practical. You're going to need this especially for fugue and orchestration because there's going to be a lot of things to work on, and you want that voice leading to be just very easy, especially orchestration. It's very easy and very simple, very practical, usually. The reminder from rules of repetition chords. So we have the path of least resistance, which you'll find in Part B, general rules. So as a reminder, voices should move as little as possible. Okay, so you want to keep the same note, or then you can move by step, and as a last resort, you can leap. Obviously, if you were to follow this literally all the time, the music, ça ne bouge pas, we say in French, it would never go anywhere, it'd be really boring. You will find soprano that will leap for expressive purposes to get to higher registers. Middle voices sometimes have to leap to rebalance the chords, so there's lots of exceptions to this rule, but as a general default, you just want the voices to move, just be as stationary and just as non-controversial as possible. All right, so now we have leaps in the soprano. Okay, so when you have a leap in soprano, you may have to do something to balance that chord, as I just mentioned. So I highly recommend a couple of things. One, make sure that you have all the notes of the chord present, so root, third, fifth. That's required because the soprano may go to a different partial than would otherwise be the case. So there is a danger if you don't actually pay attention that you'll have a missing third or a missing fifth or something like that. Another thing is to make sure that the distances aren't too wide between the voices. So here, notice that from bass to tenor, we have a tenth, from tenor to alto, we have a fifth, and from alto to soprano, a sixth. Good. Reminder, rules of repetition chords, if you go to part A, absolute rules, the section on distances between voices, I mentioned that the maximum distance between the upper three voices, so alto to soprano or alto down to tenor, cannot exceed an octave. Anything more, the music is not correct. Okay, again, this is like almost like a science. It's not correct. The music feels a little bit empty. Of course, for your own composition, it may work, and you can't put this directly in composition. This is a separate study. It just builds your intuitive ear. This is vocal music, if you think about it, but it will help just hear much better for composition, of course. Now, for bass to tenor, maximum distance is a twelfth, though a lot of times the 12th will sound very empty and thin, so a tenth is much preferred. There are cases where a 12th does work very nicely, but to check out those exceptions, just go to school.com/composition and watch the rules for repetition chords. All right, now the bass moves by step, and here is the glory of the French. So I remember when I was in America, I was doing counterpoint exercises and just trying to do like a Bach chorale harmony exercise, which is ridiculously hard. I would spend so much time stressing about trying to find other parallel fifths or parallel octaves. And then when I went to France, they made it really simple. Okay, so when the bass moves by step, the other voices move in opposite direction. Otherwise, you're going to have a very high propensity to have parallel fifths and parallel octaves. There are other cases that you can have parallel fifths and parallel octaves. That's a big one, is when the bass moves by a step. Now, a major exception will be the deceptive cadence, because the leading tone does need to resolve up to the tonic. So here we have a 4-5-6. The alto goes down, but notice that it resolves the leading tone for the deceptive cadence. Tenor goes down the entire time to pose the motion of the bass. As a reminder, for rules for reposition chords, for the deceptive cadence, we double the third. This has to be the case in minor keys. There is an exception for major keys where you can double the root. Just check the series for the exact, rules for that. But in general, you're just going to double the third. It just works better. And for minor, you have to double third. Now we're going to test the middle voices. So the formula we have here is re, do, si. Okay, we have 3, 2, 1. So something to mention is for root position chords, you'll see a lot of times that soprano starts with the third, okay? And what you'll start to realize is the natural place for the soprano is the third with the bass on the root. Now, of course, many exceptions, your own music, you can't try to apply this to the music. It's just for the exercise, just build the norms of what is most beautiful, but to get those norms in place. So that means when you see the third scaled in soprano, you need to start thinking, is this the root? Okay, it's very unlikely it's going to be the 3. 3 isn't even allowed for minor chords, but like you see the third in soprano, and your brain needs to automatically associate that with the root. Now, if you're interested in fugue, I have a series called, I think it's called How the French Learn Fugue, or French Fugue Exercises. It's a little bit on the back burner at the moment, but I hope to be bringing it back very soon. But if you're doing that series where it is, you have that completed fugue and you're trying to figure it out, one of the big clues is you're going to see that third scale degree and you're going to associate in your brain, okay, that's probably a 1. Now, the other thing, because we see that, we see that 3, 2, 1, we see the soprano going to the 1, it's not going to be the 1 in the bass, because they have a 1 in the 1. That's going to be probably a perfect authentic cadence. So that's going to kill the motion of the piece. So one of the things you'll realize, and you'll do it many times, is that when you have the 3, 2, 1 for root position chords, automatically you're going to be thinking that 2 to 1 is a deceptive cadence. French harmony exercises. So I hope that you found this very useful. The next step is to make sure to watch the rules for root position chords in full so you actually know what the rules are. Then once you've done that, you have to apply what you learn. You have to do the exercises. So you can go to school.com/composition, click on classroom, and go to the French harmony exercises, absolute beginner. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.